Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the messengers in our home. Dear Kardec Radio listeners, welcome back to the messengers in our home. Tonight we're going to talk about chapter 38, Hard at Work. So the interesting question is how we define work here on earth, and what does work mean in the spiritual world, and what kind of work do the spirits do? Just as a quick reminder for all of us, in the Spirits book we learn that work is every useful occupation. So let's meditate about that a little bit. Hello Mackenzie.
Hi Francisca. Hello everyone. Welcome back to another chapter of the messengers in our home.
And before we start, we invite you to let go of your day and elevate your thoughts to the higher spheres. Connecting to God, our Creator, in our opening prayer. Dear Mother, Father God, we praise your greatness, the justice of your laws that govern the universe, even though we might not understand all of them right now. We praise your justice, your love, and your creation, which is perfect, which leads us and guides us on our ways in our lives, and helps us to come closer to you. And so we thank you for the gift of life, this opportunity of being incarnated in a physical body here on earth right now. Learning to love, learning to serve, and growing spiritually and morally each and every day. We thank you for your unconditional love, and we ask you to please help us feel your presence every moment, especially in times of struggles. And help us also so that we can love just because we exist, ourselves, our families, our friends, our children, and at one point the whole universal family, and each and every one of your creations, big and small. You as our example love us just for us existing, for being, without any condition. And when we are able to feel your love, it's much easier for us to navigate in the struggles of daily life, to stay on track. And we thank you for sending us your messengers, the good spirits, our guardian angels, who are constantly supporting us through their intuition, for spiritual treatments during sleep time or during the day in the spiritual centers, and everywhere where people are gathered with the honest and deep desire to help others. We're really grateful for learning more tonight about these good messengers, their work here on earth, and also what we can do to be more receptible for their guidance. And now we ask you to please allow us to start our meeting. And so be it. So let's listen to the chapter 38. Enjoy.
Chapter 38. Hard at Work. We remained hard at work in Donna Isabel's cozy living room. Outside, it had begun to rain heavily, but we felt far removed from the torrential downpour. In the early hours of dawn, the activity intensified. Many individuals were coming and going. In this spiritual work retreat, Aniceto explained, many brothers and sisters are in a realm that incarnates would call a dream. In this line of work, it's not easy to transmit messages of an instructive nature using ordinary places because they tend to be contaminated with disturbing mental matter. In spiritually uplifting workshops, like this one, however, where we are able to accumulate larger amounts of positive energies from the higher spirit planes, we can offer great benefits to those who are incarnate on the planet. I added to my own observations, noting that many of the new arrivals seemed to be unsteady convalescents. Some were standing up, supported by loving arms. They were incarnate friends who were availing themselves of the partial detachment of their spirit through physical sleep, and who were joining us to take advantage of the aid of benevolent and dedicated spirits. I realized, however, that most of them did not understand very well what was being said to them. Many appeared unwell and uncomprehending. They smiled childishly, showing a willingness to receive our guidance, but a great inability to retain it. I studied these situations with understandable wonder. Helpful as always, Aniceto helped to resolve my perplexity. As soon as incarnating spirits undergo the consolidation of the physical ties, they become subject to the imperious laws dominating Earth. Between them and us, there is a thick veil, the wall of vibrations. Without the temporary obliteration of memory, they would not experience a true renewal of their opportunity as incarnates. If our realm were freely open to them, they would forget their immediate obligations and would lean toward idleness, which would jeopardize their evolution. That is why they are rarely lucid while on our side of the veil. In most cases, while they are with us, they remain unsteady, weakened. Observe that young incarnate woman conversing with her grandma, who works with us in No Solar. As he said this, Aniceto pointed to a group nearby. With shining eyes and firm gestures, the old woman was hugging her languid and very pale granddaughter.
My grandchild,
exclaimed the little old lady in a firm tone.
Don't give so much importance to your problems. Forget about those who are haunting you. Don't hate anyone. Guard your spiritual peace more than anything else. Your mama can't help you now, but she does believe that our lives continue. Grandma will not forget you. Slander, my child, is a serpent that threatens the heart. But if we face it head on, strongly and peacefully, we will soon see that the serpent has no life of its own. It's a toy viper that breaks like glass in our hands. And once the toy is conquered, instead of a serpent, we'll have a flower of virtue. Don't be afraid, dear. Don't miss the sacred opportunity to testify to your understanding of Jesus.
The young woman didn't answer, but her semi-lucid eyes were filled with tears. She showed a vague acknowledgement of divine comfort, resting in the loving arms of the devoted old woman. Will the sister remember anything when she wakes up in her physical body? I asked our guide, intrigued. Aniceto smiled and explained. Since her grandmother benefactress is more advanced from the point of view of the planes of life on which they each dwell, the young woman is under her spiritual control. Therefore, even though there is a reciprocal magnetic current between them, I must point out that her grandmother retains a positive ascendancy. The granddaughter doesn't see her environment accurately, nor does she hear everything that is said to her. Let's not forget that disengagement during ordinary physical sleep is partial, and that the sight and hearing that are peculiar to incarnates are also restricted. Thus, the phenomenon is more of a spiritual union than one of sensorial perceptions per se. The young woman is receiving real comfort, spirit to spirit. When she awakens behind the dense veil of matter, however, she will not remember all the details of the happy encounter we have just witnessed. She will awaken feeling encouraged and refreshed, but will be unable to identify the cause of her restored good spirits. She will say that she dreamed about her grandmother in a place where there were a lot of people, but she won't be able to recall the details, adding that in her dream she saw a threatening snake, which then turned into a glass serpent that broke in her hands, only to become a fragrant flower whose aroma she still pleasantly remembers. She will affirm that a supreme comfort flooded her soul, and down deep she will understand the comforting message that was given to her. But won't she recall the words she heard? Asked Vicente. She would have to have acquired profound lucidity in the realm of physical existence, and I should explain that she will remember the symbolic images of the viper and the flower because she is in a magnetic relationship with her venerable grandma, and is thus receiving the emission of her positive thoughts. Her benefactress doesn't just speak, she also sends out thoughts with a great deal of energy. Her granddaughter, however, cannot see or hear as she normally does, but she can clearly perceive the mental creations of her elderly friend, and will talk about the symbols she glimpsed and stored in her genuine and deep memory. Hence, it will not be difficult for her to grasp the essence of what her kindly grandmother wanted to communicate to her suffering heart, informing her that slender, when it wounds a peaceful conscience, is nothing but a lying serpent that transforms itself into a flower of new virtue when confronted with the valor of serene and Christian courage. The lesson was deeply significant. I was beginning to acquire some broad notions as to the exchange between the two spheres. I thought about the lengthy efforts of those who investigate the world of dreams. How much psychological wealth could be gained if researchers could move the focus of their study from physiological events to the realm of spiritual truths. I was reminded of psychoanalysis and the instinctive inferior manifestations dealt with in the Freudian thesis. Perceiving my inner thoughts, our devoted mentor said to me in particular, Freud was a great missionary of science. However, like any other incarnate spirits, he had certain limitations. He did a great deal in the area of psychological research, but not everything. From our instructor's hesitation, I perceived that he did not wish to enter into a detailed examination of that famous theory. Remembering, however, the extraordinary importance attributed by the great scientist to the lower inclinations, I asked, a bit timidly, "But are there meeting centers for spirits unbalanced in evil, just as here there are centers for those who are interested in the good?" Aniceto smiled benevolently and said, "There can be no doubt about it. Obsessions, ongoing persecutions, low-class psychic exploitations, destructive vampirism, and various temptations are maintained by means of magnetic currents susceptible to being set in motion when incarnates are asleep. There are still relatively few of our incarnate brothers and sisters who know how to sleep for the good." And with an expressive gesture, he concluded, "O Lord, keep us from falling once again." And tonight we're going to talk about chapter 38, Hard at Work. And as you've been following, Andre and Vicente and Aniceto, and naturally a bunch of other spirits who are united and together at Dona Isabel's house, they are there to perform, we can call it a job, right? We can call it a work, to help other spirits, to help incarnate and discarnate spirits. And we just saw on last week's chapter that Dona Isabel just left the house after she went to bed, after she went to go to sleep, and after her daughters and son are also sleeping. So she meets Isidoro, and they together go out to their mission, to whatever they need to do at that specific time. And all the other spirits are there in their place, taking care of the two children, or all the children, and taking care of the house, and naturally receiving all the good spirits who want to be helped, right? Who need and want to be helped. This is one big difference that we're going to find and we're going to study on this chapter. It's the need, but also that they want to be helped. So they are at their cozy living room, as Andre described, and he says that they are working really hard at this specific moment. And we remember that last week Andre described that it was started to rain, but they are inside the house, and the house is so protected that they feel as if they are really, really far away from that specific downpour, from that rain, from that storm. What is really interesting about this is, I don't know if I said this last week or not, but if I said, I apologize, but I'm going to say it again, is that this inner peace, right, this feeling of being cozy, of being protected, is not necessarily connected to how it's on the outside, but more importantly, what's and how it's on the inside. So we can use the metaphor here of the house, right? That's prepared to receive a big rain. But while you're inside the house, you're really protected. Outside, it may be storming. There may be thunders and lightnings and trees falling. And of course, if it's a big thing, and depending on where the house is, if the base is not strong enough, then you can be carried out. But that's the whole thing about this metaphor that Andre is using here, is that, well, it's a downpour outside, but they are inside the house, meaning that if I have Jesus' peace, if I have the peace that Jesus offers to us inside of ourselves, if our conscience is completely clean, if I'm really striving to do the best that I can, and I'm really doing the best that I can, I will be in peace with myself. And it doesn't matter what's going on outside, I will still be in peace. Maybe there's a lot of noise outside. Maybe people are screaming, calling names. There are lots of stuff happening outside. It may be a little bit disturbing, but I will not lose my peace, right? I may hear everything as I am inside the house. I can hear the downpour. I can hear the thunder. But if I'm in peace, this will not it may bother me a little bit, but this will not take me out of my real inner peace. But they keep working, right? And Andre describes that it's in the early hours of dawn when the activity intensified and many individuals were coming and going. What are these individuals, right? If it's early hours of dawn, naturally he's talking about discarnate spirits, because there will be no incarnate spirits in the early hours of dawn, and we know that Donna Isabel is sleeping. They will not be coming to her house. So these are discarnate spirits who are coming. And Aniceto explains that in this spiritual work retreat, or this place, right, this house, and he is calling this house, or Donna Isabel's home, as a spiritual work retreat. He says that many brothers and sisters are in a realm that incarnates would call a dream. And while I was reading this, I was thinking, well, maybe they think it's a dream. Maybe the incarnates think that what's happening there is a dream, and meaning that, oh, this is just something that comes out of my mind. But that's not what Aniceto is saying here. Aniceto is using this expression, a dream, as that expression, let's say, oh, I just graduated from my biology major, right? So I want to become a biologist. And then all of a sudden I find this company that's hiring, and it's, let's say, marine biology, and they're hiring, and I am approved to work at that specific company doing exactly what I studied to do. Oh, then that's my dream job, right? Meaning maybe that I will work exactly with what I want. I will be paid to do what I really like to do, and I will have, lots of benefits, and we could go on and on. So this is the dream job, right? Or let's say I always dreamed of, I don't know, playing basketball, and then all of a sudden I played really hard, I practiced a lot, and then I get invited to play for a team, for a professional team. And what is the team that invites me? It's the team that I always dreamed of, whatever the team is. So this is my dream team. So this is what Aniceto is saying here, is that this house, as it is of this moment, it is a dream for a lot of these spirit workers, because they are able, right? And that's what he says, in spiritually uplifting workshops like this one, like Donna Isabel's house, they are able to accumulate larger amounts of positive energies from the higher spirit planes, and then they can offer great benefits to those who are incarnate on the planet. Why on this specific house? Naturally, we already talked about, and since we've been talking and chatting and conversing about all this, we know that the more I practice, the more I think about good stuff, right? The more I prepare my environment to not destroy the good vibrations, the good energies that are on that specific environment or that specific place. And what Aniceto is trying to say is, to us, is how do we want our houses, right? How do we want our houses to be? Do we want our houses to be places where there's a lot of disturbances, where there's a lot of disagreement, and we are always destroying the spiritual and mental and psychological vibrations of our house, and then we cannot invite good spirits to work at our places, because it will be hard for them to work with our material, right, with what we produce inside our houses. And in Donna Isabel's case, it's the opposite. They do their home worship, right, their gospel at home, and they really strive to keep up their good hopes, their good thoughts. She educates her children the way she can, the best way that she can do it. She does it, and we already discussed a little bit about this previous few chapters ago. So it is for us another calling, right? All these teachings are callings for us, right? It's not for us to look at other people's houses. It's not for us to keep looking at other people's spiritist centers. It's for us to speak about this if we are one of those who speak, right? It is for us to do this at our homes, in our spiritist centers, in the church that I go to. It is for us to use this example and use it in our own lives. So the question once again is, how am I doing? How are we doing in our spiritual work retreats, right? In our homes, in our places of work, in our places of encounter with God, right? Be it a church, a temple, a spiritist center, a spiritist group, wherever it is, out in nature. What are my thoughts and my actions saying about what I am and what I am trying to become, right? So then, after Aniceto says that, Andre starts to describe a little bit what's going on, and he says that he starts to see a lot of new arrivals, right? And he says that some are unsteady convalescents, right, as if they are really sick, and some are standing up, supported by loving arms, by people who are bringing them. Some of these spirits are spirits who are still incarnate, right, but they are sleeping, and they are joining that conversation or joining that work by being brought to that house, to that specific place, by some loved ones. And they are being, I wouldn't say carried, but being helped, because maybe they are, sick, or they don't know how to do it by themselves. There may be a lot of different explanations for this. But what Andre tells us is that what he really realizes about this is that most of those spirits who are getting to that house at that specific moment, they do not understand very well what is being said to them. And that's almost literally what Andre says here, if you're following us with the book in your hands, right? Now, once again, just as I say from time to time, it is very, very important, if you're really studying this, that you have the book with you, so that you can maybe underline, maybe write some notes. And with those notes, maybe you don't agree with us. Maybe you have, a story to tell about that specific passage of the book, and you want to share it with us. You can do it, right? You can go to Facebook and look for Kardec Radio. You can send us an email and just communicate with us. It is really important for us that you talk to us, right? That you give your feedback to us. You just need to go to KardecRadio.com and write to us, right? You'll find there the contacts page, and then you can write to us, say what you if you have any question, if you have something to share. It would be really interesting for us to know what you're thinking, if make any corrections or add to what we are discussing here. Well, but going back to what Andre was saying, following the book here, Andre says that many of them appeared unwell and uncomprehending. Some of them, they smiled childishly, showing a willingness to receive our guidance. So that is very important. I'm going to stop here for a while. The ones who are there at this specific work retreat, right, this workshop, uplifting workshop, meaning Dona Isabel's house. And remember, this can be, or this could be, our house. This could be Ana Moreno's house from California. This could be Francisca's house. This could be Mackenzie's house. This could be any one of ours, right? Any one of our houses. And we can have those, and maybe we are having those, and it's just that we are not aware. And how would we know, right? Well, I wouldn't necessarily want to know, but if my house, if your home is striving to do the best that you can and really, really, like performing or doing your home worship, right? Your gospel at home or your God at home, and you're always with uplifting conversations, with love, with care. Why wouldn't there be one happening in your house when you're sleeping, right? Why wouldn't one of these meetings be happening regularly in our homes, right? And if they are happening, the spirits who are brought there, they are brought there because they are willing to receive guidance from the good spirits who are working in our houses. And this is, like I said, this is very important for this chapter here, because these are not spirits who are being brought by force, right? No, they really want to receive guidance. They really want to be there. They already want to be taken there. But Andre says, so they are willing to receive guidance, but they have, or they show, a great inability to retain that guidance. And why is that? Maybe because they are sick, maybe because, Aniceto will explain it to us, right? We already read the chapter, we already heard the reading of the chapter, so we already know what Aniceto will say. But let's go and see what Aniceto tells us about this specific situation. Well, they're willing to receive it, but they don't show and don't have a great ability to retain that guidance. Why is that so? Because Andre was kind of curious to know what's going on, and was probably questioning himself, why Aniceto this is happening? And Aniceto, naturally, as we all know, looking at Andre, know what's going on, and then answers him. As soon as incarnating spirits undergo the consolidation of the physical ties, meaning once they reincarnate and their reincarnation is complete, they become subject to the laws dominating Earth, meaning the material laws. And those laws, right, is what separate the discarnate from the incarnate, meaning, well, because of the matter, because of our body, we cannot hear, feel, and sense everything the same way as if we are not discarnate, as if we don't have our bodies. And he explains about if we don't have that, we would not experience a true renewal of their opportunity as incarnates. Meaning, to most of us, if we didn't forget, if we didn't really experience the idea of being incarnate and of having this life and remembering everything that I am prior to this, I would not experience a true renewal of opportunity. And remember, this book, and we keep returning to this from time to time, is about this renewal, right? About this work that makes us new, that really helps us transform ourselves. And Aniceto goes on, if our realm were freely open to them, meaning if the spiritual realm was completely freely open to us, we would forget our obligations, our immediate obligations, and would lean toward idleness. Why? Because we would keep saying, oh no, if I die, if this happened, I will go back to the spiritual realm and I'll keep living, and then I will reincarnate, and then I will lose focus on what I need to do right now in my incarnation, in my reincarnation. I would not focus that I need to work towards improving myself, towards improving my relationship with my wife, with my husband, with my daughter, with my son, to improve my relationship with myself, right? With my, quote unquote here, my new self, right? As I reincarnate, receive a new name, have maybe some different parents or maybe the same parents, and have a different education so that I can really look inside myself and say, hey, I need to change this right now. And if we remembered everything, this would jeopardize our evolution. And that is why Aniceto goes on, right? He says they are rarely lucid while on their side of the veil, right? On the other side, meaning you're still incarnate. So you go to the other side, and then you still don't remember everything. And that's why you're almost always not completely lucid, and maybe some of the times not even aware completely of what's going on. And while they are there, those who are sleeping, for example, they remain unsteady and weakened. Why? Because they are in the spiritual realm, but they are still attached to the material body, and they mean that they are still incarnate. So the laws of the material body still influence a lot of what's going on, even when we are somewhat detached from our bodies, when we are incarnate or when we are sleeping. And then Aniceto looks at Andrea and says, look, now observe that young incarnate woman conversing, talking, chatting with her grandma, who works with us in No Solar. So the grandmother of that young woman who is incarnate, right, but is sleeping at that moment and was brought there to Dona Isabel's house by her grandmother to talk to her. Why wouldn't she talk to her at her house? And we would go back to what Aniceto was saying before, right? Aniceto was saying, well, this workshop here, this place here, has a lot of different good vibrations, and here it is much more. Everything that we're going to say here can be improved, can be increased, so that the person that's receiving the conversation, that's talking to the good spirit there, can be more impressed by the good vibrations that the house, that the place provides to that specific spirit. So the grandmother who works in No Solar brings her granddaughter to Dona Isabel's house so that they can have a good and uplifting conversation. And once he says that, he points Andrea to that couple, right, to the grandmother and granddaughter, so that Andrea can observe what's going on. And then now we're going to see or hear or talk a little bit about the grandmother talking, what she is saying to her granddaughter, and what we can take from that conversation to our own lives. But before doing so, I would just like to give a big thanks to Ana Moreno and Claudia Robinson from the JASS, or Joanna de Angelis Spiritist Society in California. They sent us email and Facebooked us just to say thanks for the program, for what Kardec Radio is doing and helping them with their activities there at their Spiritist Society. And we would like to thank them for actually giving us this feedback, to know that we are able to reach people from across the country here, from the U.S., across the world. As we always say that Francisca, for example, is in Germany right now, but when we began, she was in the UK, and then she was in Sydney, in Australia. So hopefully we are reaching you everywhere, anywhere you are, be it incarnated or actually and also discarnated. So thank you everyone who is listening to us, who is showing this program and all Kardec Radio programs to other people, so that we can all learn together. We can form this network or this net of light, right, connecting the dots of spirituality, of higher spirituality, of love around the globe. So once again, thank you, Ana, and thank you, Claudia, for being such good companions to all of us, and to the ones that listen to us but are anonymous. Thank you very much for for being together here with us. But hey, let's go back here to the conversation between the grandmother and the granddaughter. And she, or the granddaughter, right? The grandmother, right? She starts by saying, "My grandchild," right? And she was very firm when she was saying this. Don't give too much or so much importance to your problems. Isn't this like an advice for all of us? And that's how I want to talk about this conversation, right? Because it's a conversation of an older person or a person that we respect. It doesn't matter here that necessarily they are blood related, right? But in this case here, they are blood related, or they are a family. Although we say, well, they are blood related, but how come the grandmother is dead, right? Does not have a body with blood flowing in her veins, at least not as ours here. So it's more than a family in terms of materiality, right? So it doesn't matter actually who it is. If we respect, if we see that person as a person that has something to teach us, so we just listen. We just open our ears, open our hearts, and let their message enter, right, inside of ourselves. And she goes on, forget those who are hounding you, who are haunting you, who are persecuting you, who are going after you, right? And don't hate anyone. So it couldn't be more direct, correct? It's something that we know how bad it is for us, not for the other one, but for ourselves, right? How much this hatred, how much this feeling of revenge or vengeance, right, causes us. And actually the opposite is also true, right? The more love we feel, the more we love the others, the more we do for the others, the better we feel. Our bodies respond to love in a completely different way than our body responds when we hate. And she goes on, guard your spiritual peace more than anything else. So saying the same, right? And remember, we just talked about this when we were talking about the house, right? That it's pouring outside, right? That storm is coming, but it's completely calm and peaceful inside. That's what she's saying here, right? So guard your spiritual peace more than anything else. It doesn't matter what's happening outside. We need to keep our peace, our inner peace. And she goes on. We don't know the story of the granddaughter, right? But probably she was praying for her mother that was probably is probably also discarnated, but the grandmother says that she cannot help, but she believes that our lives continues, or maybe we don't know exactly, but because of this sentence, maybe she is still incarnated, right? But she cannot help the daughter, right? The mother cannot help the daughter, but also she believes that the lives continues when we die. And the grandmother, she keeps saying, well, I will not forget you. So forget about slander, right? All the calumnies that you've been hearing, the rumors, the defamation that she is following. That's what slander means, right? A malicious, false, and defamatory statement or report. So probably somebody is saying that she, the granddaughter, is doing something that she actually is not doing. So creating lies about her life, and maybe that's why she is suffering so much. And then she, the grandmother, will help us understand how we can see if we are being slandered by somebody, if we are being lied upon, if we are being, if somebody is trying to destroy our reputation, for example, right? And how do we act? And I prefer to use act instead of react, because like reaction is something that we usually employ when it's something that's instinctive instead of something that we reflect upon. So that's why I prefer to use act instead of react when we are trying to use or to do something that's constructive instead of just instinctive, purely instinctive, or something that may be at the end of the day may be something destructive. So what the grandmother wants us to understand is how to act back, right, when we are being slandered. And we can even make this explanation to a broader idea, right? It doesn't matter if it's just slander. It can be anything that somebody is doing against us. So the idea here is, how do we act, right, once we have and once we receive something from another person? What do we need to do to act back and not to just purely and simply react back to what the person is trying to do to us? So that's why she says, right, that the slander is a serpent that threatens the heart, but if we face it head on, strongly and peacefully, and these are the two main words here, strongly. But what is, when we think of the word strong, right, we think of strength, we think of power. And normally when we think of something that's strong or somebody that's acting strong against something, we usually think of violence. Maybe that's not always the case, but it's very common for us to think about, right? If I'm acting strongly, it's usually, and if it's against a person or against an action, it's usually violently. But that's why she uses the word here peacefully, because we need to be very strong to go against it, but we need to go against it peacefully, not violently, right? Not as if we are desperate, completely desperate, and then we lose control, we lose our reasoning, we lose our the control or the management of ourselves. And once we do that, right, she says, we will soon see that the serpent has no life of its own. So the slander is just a fake. It's just something that's completely fake, and it will destroy itself with time, because it doesn't have a life of its own. But she goes on and says, it's something that has no life. So it is a toy viper that breaks like glass in our hands. And once that toy is conquered, instead of a serpent, we will have a flower of virtue. So she says, don't be afraid, dear. Don't miss the sacred opportunity to testify your understanding of Jesus. And why is the grandmother here saying this, right? Why does she compare this slander to a serpent that is not a serpent, is a toy? And then when that toy breaks, we will have the flower of virtue. Right here, I'm going to jump a few paragraphs to try to explain this, because Aniceto actually explained it to us, right? And he says at close to the very, well, it's not close to the very, very end of the chapter, but when Vicente asks him if she will not recall the words that she heard from her grandmother, Aniceto talks a little bit about memory and about what do we actually remember once we are awakened in the spiritual realm, but sleeping in the physical realm, and because of those magnetic ties that we already talked a little about. But at the end of that paragraph, he says, and I'm going to quote here, and I'm going to try to explain with my own words, in making this probably the main teaching, I would say the main teaching of this chapter, but that it's more or less hidden, at least to what I can see. And then he says, and I quote, "Slander, when it wounds a peaceful conscience, is nothing but a lying serpent that transforms itself into a flower of new virtue when confronted with the valor of serene and Christian courage." So I'm gonna ask you to remember what we talked about in the beginning of the chapter, and I already said it once again, at least once again, during this program, that the house, right, this workshop, the home, Isidoro and Donna Isabel's home is that peaceful place. Remember, outside, it may look like a shack. It may look like a very poor house. And what's happening outside at this specific moment in the story, it is pouring, right? But inside the house, everything is very, very peaceful. So what is Aniceto telling us here? And so let's make this comparison, right, between Slender and the storm outside, right? Slender and the storm outside Slender is this storm outside, right? It is something that's coming against you. And maybe it is something that has this power to destroy. However, if it encounters a place, a house, a person that has on the inside the peace that is necessary to confront that storm, will this peace make the storm end? No. My peace will not make the Slender that's being promoted against me to stop right away. But since it's something, since it is something that I cannot control, I have to learn how to deal with it. And I have to keep my conscience peaceful. Why? Because I didn't do. If I have my conscience in peace with regards to what the other person is saying, why would I be violent against the other person? I am in peace because I didn't do it. So I don't have to defend myself. I can calm down and say, well, you are saying this. I'm just using some words here, so it's not exactly what we do, or what maybe it's what I would do, but it's not necessarily how we all do. But I didn't do this. But if you think I did, what can I do, right? I am in peace with my conscience. Let's go on. Let's keep living, and we will see what's going to happen after a while. And if I did, something will appear, will show that I did something. But if it didn't, it will just destroy itself. And out of that Slender, out of that storm, what can usually come? It may come a destruction for naturally, right? It may tear a house down, for example. It may tear a tree down. But after the storm, right, sun usually shines. The water that fell will help something new grow, right? We all need the water. We all need that transformation that the storm brings. But for us to confront that storm, we have to be calm. We have to have courage. And that's why Aniceto finishes his quote here that we just read with the valor of serene and Christian courage. So it is not any kind of courage that is violent. No, it is a Christian courage. It's that courage of the certainty that I can do something, that I believe, that I live, that I am much, much more than what I'm living through at this exact moment. So this idea of having somebody tell lies about myself, of showing stuff that I didn't do, it, in this case, right, we can apply it to anything that's happening in my life. We can see problems that are coming our way as steps for me to grow, right? For me to strengthen myself. So if I keep climbing, if I keep making the effort to walk, making the effort to go ahead and jump over the problems, right? And so that I can pass one problem and pass another one, and not just to put them aside. Because if I put them aside, they will return because I didn't solve the problems, because I didn't actually confront the problems with this serene courage, this Christian courage. So to me, this chapter, right, this whole chapter is about what and how should we go inside ourselves and fortify ourselves with this idea of the Christian courage, of peace within, of having the conscience clear and clean, that we are really doing the best we can. And that, more than just doing the best we can, of really doing the good, not only for myself, but for all the others, right? To really, really strive to be a Christian at heart in this full sense of being a Christian, which is to love oneself as we love our neighbors and love God above everything else. But sometimes what I perceive is that, unfortunately, we tend to look much more on the outside, or to the outside, and that's why it is so easy for us, and here I'm including myself, because we've been reading this book and many other books, right? And sometimes, and I was talking to a friend the other day, Anna, that we just mentioned in the program as well, about how we read something and then we reread that something after we grew, after we have more experience, and how much we see of different things that we hadn't seen before, right? So this chapter, at least to what I could remember before studying again, to come here and talk to all of you and talk to me as well, I would remember this chapter being about a dream, right? And being about dreams and probably even interpretation of dreams. But this is not about interpretation of dreams, because like we understand here from the chapter, it is very hard for us. What is that we take from the dream, right? Let's say the granddaughter sees the grandmother speaks, says, she says a lot of things. And what does she remember when she wakes up? And that's what Aniceto tells us here, right? She will remember, these symbolic images of the viper, right, of the serpent, of the snake, and of the flower, because that's what her grandmother magnetically imposed on her or fixed on her. And that those two things, right, the viper will break and then will become a flower. And maybe she will understand that this is what this slander, these lies will become later on, if she is able to go ahead and handle it and really live Jesus' message in her own life, right, in her awakened life, changing herself, loving one another, loving herself, as we just said, loving God above everything, but really doing good in life and using her life to progress, using her life to grow. But we mostly remember only the exterior. It is, if we use meta language, right, going into even more into the chapter, it is as if this chapter is I'm not going to use the word serpent, because this chapter is not a serpent, but let's say this chapter is the storm that's outside. And what is the storm inside this chapter? Is this story of a dream, right, of this grandmother and this granddaughter. And this is so magical to all of us, right? The idea of, what did I dream yesterday? Do I remember what I dreamt yesterday? What am I doing? Why? How can I use this dream in my life? Does this dream mean something? But this is just the exterior. The question is, what is on the inside of that dream? What is the message within the message, right? What is the message that this chapter is trying to teach us? It's not trying to tell us that, if you dream of a serpent and then that serpent breaks and then it comes a flower, it's because it's talking about slander. No, it's about conversations. It's about what I take from what I talked to somebody. If it were like the grandfather talking to the granddaughter, probably he would have told a different story. He would have said this in a different way. So she might have not dreamt of a snake and of a flower. She could have dreamt, let's say, of a what can I say here? Of a bear, and then that bear transformed into the rain or into a leaf, for example. I'm just, creating another story here so that we can understand that the dreams, those elements are not always the same. It really depends on who I'm talking to, what really happened on the other side. But so the main point here is that André Aniceto, right? This story is trying to tell us that no matter what the dream is, if we have a situation that's similar to this, not to slander per se, but let's say it is slander, or let's say it is something else, right? Let's say it is something that somebody that I love that just died, for example, and I'm feeling alone. How do I face that situation? I can face it with the valor of serene and Christian courage, right? And this will become a new virtue, because I will understand that this is not made against me, but it's made for me to grow, for me to be more, to be stronger, right? To learn a new lesson and to use that lesson in my life. So it is very important for us to really look at these stories and try not to fix ourselves just on the surface, just on the images, but really try to go inside, and not just for our minds or not just for our reason, but most importantly, that these stories can tell something to our hearts, so that we have and we unite reasoning and sentiment, right? The feeling and the idea, and put these things into practice in my daily lives, in using this to transform myself, to help others around me. Otherwise, it will just be another book, it will just be another story for us to tell that I read on a Spiritist book, to when I go in front of an audience and I remember this story and say, oh, look how beautiful this story is. And what am I doing with this story? How am I using the story or the idea of the story, or how we used to have in the past, maybe we still have these days? What's the moral of the story? What can we take from this story? And that's what we are looking for here. We're not looking for the scientific only. Maybe some people like the scientific, and that's fine. Go and study the dreams and see if you find something else. And they even here talk a little bit about Freud, and that's what we're going to talk just a little bit in a few seconds here. But go ahead and study the dreams. But everything and anything and everything that we study, anything that we go into, we need to really have the idea of what is this thing that I'm going into. Be it a movie, be it a music, be it a conversation with somebody, be it a book that I'm reading, anything. Right? Be a day that I'm going to spend alone at the beach, right? Just trying to rest a little bit. What am I taking from that experience to my life, to improve my life, to help me be a better person? And that's what we can, I wouldn't say worry about, but I really think about all the time, right? So reading this book here and reading this chapter specifically, it reminds me of this idea that it's not just about what is outside the house, what is about what's happening outside this workshop, Donna Isabel's home. No, it's what's happening inside that house, to make that house peaceful, right? So that it can face the storms on the outside, that it can face the downpour that's outside, so that we can face the slander outside, all the problems that we are facing in our own lives. Do we have that inner peace? What are we doing to get that inner peace, right? So, as I was saying, a person can and should, if she or he wants to, go and study the dreams, just like Freud did, and that's what André reminds us here, right? Because Freud started, right? It's the most famous one, or one of the most famous psychoanalytics of our times, at least. The other one is Carl Jung, right? Carl Gustav Jung. And he studied dreams and studied a lot of how we perceive and how our memories, how what happened to us in our early lives affect our adulthood, for example, right? And there's no problem in doing this, right? Science is something that also came from God, so there's nothing wrong in going and studying science. The only question is, what are we doing with that study? How are we using what we learned, what we are learning in our daily lives to improve the lives of others, right? To improve my physical life, but also to improve my spiritual life and the spiritual outcome of everything and anything that we are doing. And Aniceto makes a comment about Freud, and he says, well, he was a great missionary of science, and that's what we were saying, right? Science is not something that we shouldn't look. No, it's the opposite. We need science. It's completely necessary, and it's something it's there, and we should use it. But as any other incarnate spirit, and here Aniceto is talking about Freud, but we were talking about ourselves, for example, right? We have certain limitations, just like Freud had and like anybody has, right? And Aniceto says he did a great deal in the area of psychological research, but he didn't do everything. Of course, right? There will always be something for us to learn, right? There's this great quote that I've seen, and I love it, and I keep repeating it from time to time. I don't know, and I don't remember if I already said it here once, but it was the director of the patent office here in the United States that in 1899 he said, or in 1899, we are 2016, it's 117 years later, he said in 1899 that there was nothing else that could be invented, that everything that needed to be invented was already invented. And today we look at a quote like that and say, well, how wrong were we, right? How wrong he was, but we can put ourselves in his shoes and ask, well, how wrong are we if we think that a person already knows everything, right? No, nobody knows everything. We are learning together, and we need to use what the other person is studying, what the other science is studying, what the other religion is saying, so that we can find common ground. And if we don't agree, that we can look at each other and say, okay, let's just study a little bit more so that we can see not who is right or who is wrong, but what we can do to really understand the problem, and maybe one day discover if I am wrong, if you are wrong, but then that will not make us enemies. That will, if something, make us stronger as humans, right? So what Andre goes on to tell about Freud is that, well, he had great ideas, but he gave a lot of importance to the lower inclinations of us as human beings. And Aniceto didn't want to go into a detailed examination of the theory that he had, but Freud used to say that the base motivation for us as human beings is selfishness, and that's one of his conclusions, or at least one of his main thoughts. And by remembering this, Andre looks at Aniceto and asks, but are there meeting centers for spirits unbalanced in evil, just as here there are centers for those who are interested in the good? So Andre is thinking, as we already said before, the spirits who are coming here to this workshop, they are willing to learn, right? They already have, or they don't have as much this selfishness idea. They really want to learn something. They are striving to understand what they're going through so that they can learn and move on with their own lives. But now here he is asking, well, since there are some workshops like this that are devoted to help others, to help those who really want to do good, to improve themselves, are there centers for those who are unbalanced in evil, meaning for those who are really, really, really selfish? And that's what Andre is saying here, right? Is this evil is not the evil, and we could take years and lots of episodes to talk about this, but evil in this sense that Andre is employing here is that evil that comes from inside, evil that comes from this selfishness that only wants the pleasure of one's own and not the pleasure of others, and wants to feel pleasure by making other people suffer. This is selfishness, right? Because I want the pleasure and I want to take the pleasure out of the other. I want it for me, not for the other. And Aniceto smiles and says, there can be no doubt about it. Of course, unfortunately, wherever there is a human being, there will be people that are like him. Well, I wouldn't say always, but if I am a spirit who is selfish, I'm going to find other people that are like me because I attract other people that are like me, right? And then he mentions like obsessions, ongoing persecutions, low-class psychic exploitations, destructive vampirism, and various temptations. How are these things maintained? They are maintained by means of magnetic currents susceptible to being set in motion when incarnates are asleep, the same way they are doing now. But they are doing within a house, within a place where those who are living in that house are striving to do their best, are praying, are following the guidelines of Jesus, are doing things to be good. And when they go to sleep with those things in mind. They go to sleep and pray before they go to sleep. They go to sleep and probably do the intelligent sleep that we talk about. And Vanessa, for example, talks about a lot in some of her lectures, in some of the programs that she goes to. And if you want to know a little bit more about the intelligent sleep, you could go to the Spirit's book, right? And you will find from questions 400 to question 412, a full set of questions about the sleep and about the dreams, about how can we do to improve our sleep, how can we do to have a better night of sleep, to use our dreams, to use this moment where our spirit is freer from our body so that we can use and employ the time of our sleep to do something, to have a better night of sleep and to employ that time to do something good. And that's how Aniceto finishes this part here when he says that unfortunately there are still relatively few of us, incarnate brothers and sisters, who know how to sleep for the good. So once again, reread this chapter. Think about how can that young lady, the granddaughter, can go and meet her grandmother. What did she have to do, right, when she went to bed? Probably she is suffering a lot, and then she made a big prayer, but from the heart, to her mother, who cannot help her at that time, and then her grandmother came to help her. She will not be able to remember everything, but she got the lesson. She was received with love, and she will feel that presence within herself that will help her calm down, that will help her understand the problem that she goes through. It will not make it easier in ways of saying it will not remove it from her, but if she wants to do something, if she really wants to get better, she will get better by doing what? By using the courage, the Christian courage, right? The serenity, by using the peace that Jesus gives to us, that Jesus instill in us, right? By saying that it is worth it living. The life that you're living here is just 80 years, is just a physicality that is necessary for you to grow. But be aware, you live much more than just these 80 years. You have been living before, you will live after that. Believe in me, I will be there to receive you. We will always be together. And Aniceto, just to finish this whole conversation with Andre, he says, advising all of us, right? Because it is something that we really need to be aware of. We really need to remember that we are imperfect spirits, that we can fall, and how many times have we fallen, right? And so because of this, Aniceto looks at Andre, looks at us with an expressive gesture and prays. It's a one-liner pray, but it's a very, very important line that we should add to our daily lives if we hadn't been doing it already. He looks at God and he says, "Oh Lord, keep us from falling once again," because we have fallen, So, "Oh Lord, help me not to fall again." Pray of my own self. Pray of what I have become by not following the gospel that you gave to us through our dearest friend, our oldest brother, our master, our guide, Jesus Christ. So I hope that you don't fall again. I hope that we don't fall again. And I hope that we can once again meet here next time to keep working together, to be hard at work, to, like the title of next chapter, to keep doing a work that never stops, which is the work of love. I wish you all a great week. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.